They didn't really understand my background as much until I opened it up to them.
You have to be strong enough for all of us, and I really thought I was.
Yeah, that was a difficult time.
I was mad.
It was scary, honestly.
These are NFL players who had rough childhoods. And first, I didn't know this one NFL star was once homeless. That's because Josh Jacobs and his 4 brothers and sisters grew up in the hood and raised by a single dad who struggled to put a roof over their head. Sometimes, they would all have to sleep in the back of their dad's small car or in motels for short stretches.
I honestly never thought about going to NFL or nothing like that. Growing up, I ain't have nobody to look up to in this position.
When I got custody of all kids, I was in my room by myself. And I asked God, I said, okay, I got these guys by myself. And I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I'm already struggling. And the only thing I heard is clear as day, he said, protect their destiny. Mostly we were living out of the car, and literally we'll pack everything in the car. And when we get to a hotel, unpack everything, and then pack everything that morning.
And because of this, Josh's only escape was football, which ended up changing his and his family's life. And the first purchase he made with his NFL contract was to buy his family a house. Now, he may be also buying offensive lineman chains of their jersey number now, but it's crazy to think that this guy once had nothing. But this next player knows exactly what Josh went through because he lived it himself. Najee Harris and his mom weren't just homeless, they even had to move to a few different states just to be able to have a roof over their heads for short periods of time.
It was tough. We were homeless. We were back and forth from state to state.
I lived in Seattle and California. That place stuck out the most because it was grimy there. Like the food was stuff in there, like insects and stuff.
We went to bed hungry some nights. He couldn't focus well at school.
I got in a lot of fights.
So Najee's been on the move his entire life, on and off the field. Now, at least Najee had his mom, because his other player kept on playing the game he loved while being heartbroken. Puka Nacua is always crying during the national anthem before every game. That's because he takes a moment to remember his dad who passed away when he was only 11 years old.
11 years old when your father passed away. Take me through the emotions that surround something.
Football was the main thing that was our family, that was our stop in time was football, especially I think for me, it brought me back to football.
When do you feel your father the most?
The national anthem is like kind of a quiet moment in the stadium, and I feel like I'm able to calm myself and to enter a stage of being able to hear my father speak to me and enjoy his presence right before I get to play.
Inside, Puka is in pain, but he stayed locked in and cultivated the seed his dad planted about going pro one day. But what would you do if tragedy struck twice in the same day? Most would be in tears, but not Lamar Jackson. Bro was hurting bad after his dad and grandma both died only a few hours apart on the very same day, and his mom had to step up for him, but made Lamar make a promise.
You lost your dad and your grandma the same day?
Same day, 2005.
But your mom wouldn't let you cry?
No, I didn't cry. I found out my father passed first. And at first I started crying, and then I just stopped. My mom tell me she got a phone call. My grandma was probably in Daytona or something like that. Grandmother just passed, and she was like, don't cry. I'm like, you just told me don't cry. My grandma just died? That was crazy. Just had to be mentally tough at a young age.
Is that where some of your strength comes from?
Mentally strong, and she didn't cry. I couldn't cry because she a woman. I'm like, I'm not finna cry. She not gonna cry.
She proved to be his rock and what inspired him to keep going.
Yeah, she's a huge influence on my life just by, her just raising 4 of us, my younger brother, my 2 sisters, me being the oldest, and just see how she grind and work without complaining, not wanting me to get a job, telling me to focus on football, and she gonna take care of everything else.
Without that support, who knows where he'll be today? Cause even his mom helped him secure a major contract. But what T. Higgins went through with his mom was unimaginable. When T was only 6 years old, his mom became addicted to crack. And one night, while she was on the streets, tragedy struck. She was shot in the head 2 times by a dealer. Young T was left home all by himself, a few houses down from where the incident went down, and he remembers running to the scene of the crime like it was yesterday.
So it was a car here, police car here. It was only like a crime scene. I'm like, let me through, I wanna see my mom. My sister had told me that that mom has been shot. I was like yay high, and she leave me at home by herself just to go get some drugs. She was addicted. Yeah, it was crazy. I ran barefoot all the way down, just crying. Yeah, it was crazy though. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Now, out of some miracle, T's mom survived the near fatal shots, and she turned her life around. And today, she's his biggest fan, thanking her son for saving her life.
Hey T, Mama, I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you. I've always dreamed and wanted to go to the Super Bowl. And now my dream has finally come true. I can't explain to you what that means to me. Like I always tell you, play hard and have fun. I love you, son.
But this is nothing compared to being related to a convict. Growing up, Debo wanted to be just like his big bro Quan. Debo would follow his brother around like a lost puppy and wanted to do everything he did, even after Quan tried to ditch his ass like all big bros. But one day, while Debo was attending class in high school, he got a call with devastating news that changed everything.
Quan called and Tyshawn kept yelling my name, and he was in the floor crying his eyes out. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "My brother not okay." Only thing I could do was just hold him and cry.
The only thing you can do is, just try to keep going. Don't let that get in the way of nothing that you are trying to achieve in your life.
Now, thankfully, Debo's dad was there for him and kept him locked into the game he loved. Unlike what happened to Jordan Love, whose heart was broken. Now, Pookie may look clean cut and innocent.
Can you just get it out early? The whole with light skin and all that. Just get it out early. Go ahead.
What we got?
Go ahead, get it out early.
I appreciate you keeping the culture going. Light skinned pretty dudes.
Come on.
But he's been through some ish. He lost his dad growing up.
Quarterbacks are kind of like superheroes, especially in Green Bay, right? Every superhero has an origin story. But I guess your story would start at 14 when your father passes, when your mother encourages you to continue playing football. What was that time like for you?
Yeah, that was a difficult time. Obviously, just losing my father, that was tough. Being 14 years old, the man I look up to, the man who raised me, losing a parent, it was very tough for me and my family, a very hard situation.
And bowed out to Brock Purdy in the playoffs. That's rough. But hey, bro is balling out. But after one player had to confront the person who killed his family, everything changed. Warrick Dunn was the best little big back ever, but behind those runs was pain. Before breaking into the NFL, Warrick's mom, who raised him and his 5 brothers and sisters all by herself, was murdered by being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's where I saw my mom's body laying on the table, and there was police officers surrounding the table. So, it just hit me. I was shocked.
Warrick was there to embrace us, and it became so real.
And soon, Warrick met with the person who killed his mom in prison.
Warrick met with Kevin Brumfield, one of the men convicted of killing his mom. Brumfield sits on death row at Angola State Prison in Louisiana.
Looking at his face, Warrick wanted to do the worst to him.
What did you say to him when you first saw him?
Yeah, really, I didn't know what to say. It was just one of those moments that I just tried to stay calm.
But he proved to be the bigger person and forgave him.
All those nights that I've cried and sat around and just wondered, all the times that I've really missed out on smiling, having fun, enjoying life, he took that away from me. I gave him that power. So I felt like I needed to regain that power.
But he didn't go to his execution.
No desire. I'm free.
15 years later, are you mad?
I'm not mad anymore. Things happen for a reason. I learned that.
But after all that, to pay respect to his mom's memory, Warrick set up a housing program for other single-parent families to own their own homes.
It was just the happiest time of my life.
It takes a little bit to build that generational wealth, but this is where you start.
This video is from very young in your playing time, and I want you to take a listen.
After your mother's death, you became father and mother to your 5 brothers and sisters. You've got quite a burden for a young man.
I'm only 24 years old. I still have my own life to live. I think it's just going to pay off for me in the long run.
Wow, respect. But this next player had to grow up as a kid real quick after what happened to his mom. DeAndre Hopkins nearly lost his mom after she was blinded by an attack from acid when he was only 10 years old.
I was just in shock. Somebody could look like that. It was scary, honestly.
This could have crushed him, but DeAndre proved to be tougher than a $2 steak, stepping up to be the man of the house and taking care of his brother and 2 sisters. Seeing his mom struggle with everyday life gave him all the motivation he needed to go all the way to the pros. And today, DeAndre is still a mama's boy who gives his mom the ball every time he scores a touchdown. But for Dak Prescott, he felt his family was cursed. After a tough battle, Dak's mom lost her battle with cancer.
She wanted us to live our lives, and she wanted us to not necessarily worry about her. And then her initial deal was, well, allow me to be your story. I remember when she lost her hair, we all cut our hair off too as well with her, but she didn't show physically. Just because she didn't have any hair, she would never show the pain inside that she was feeling.
But for Dak and his brothers, things were about to get much worse. The pain of losing her to cancer was too much for his big brother Jace to bear, and he ended up taking his own life.
I'm reading this message and I don't believe it. I literally get up like, oh my God, my brother just accidentally shot himself. You know, like, oh, he shot himself in the foot, or he shot himself in here, and then I get the message, no, he shot himself in the head.
So, inside, Dak's pain is only more motivation for him to work even harder, which is something that Isaiah Pacheco can relate as well.
They didn't really understand my background as much until I opened it up to them. You never know when it's gonna be your last opportunity, or I never knew when it was gonna be my last time seeing my sister or my brother.
Now, if you didn't know, Isaiah Pacheco runs angry. He runs so hard, even his teammates noticed that his runs are emotional. And that's because he's running for his brother and sister, who were both murdered over the course of less than 2 years.
I was like 16 when my brother died.
It changed everybody's life when we found out he got murdered.
My brother ended up getting stabbed and lost his life that night. It was hurting me because I didn't have that same guidance when I would hear him scream my name at the football fields. 1 year after that, got a knock on the door by a family member. She says, "It's Celeste." I'm like, "Celeste, what you mean?" She's gone. I'm just in shock because I didn't know what to do after losing a brother and like a sister now.
And knowing this, everyone got behind Isaiah and just gave him the ball even more, from his college days till now, making him one of the hardest running backs in the league. But hey, let's lighten the mood a little bit, because some players had rough childhoods slightly different ways. Because one player had to go pro or work on the farm forever. Josh Allen grew up on a farm. He lived in a small town with just over 8,000 people. Everybody knew everybody, but Josh knew that this place wasn't for him. The struggle of having to clean up cows and milking cows was real. He was like, man, this sucks. So that was the motivation he needed to escape the farm life. So much that Josh wrote 1,000 emails to every school in the country, including D2 and D3 schools, but no replies. But one school took a chance on him, and Josh played out of his mind at Wyoming, slinging balls like stacks of hay and trucking dudes like a runaway tractor.
He dances his way into the end zone. Touchdown!
But other players in college almost got kicked out of football before they even made it to the pros. And that's because Tyrann Mathieu was dealing with a whole lot.
Tyrann had failed multiple drug tests for marijuana.
Tyrann Mathieu is no longer on our team, violated team policies.
He didn't want to let me go. And even he's crying and, he's tearing up. And it was just, just looking at my whole life kind of running away from me.
His whole life has been a long struggle. From the time he was born, his mom gave him up for adoption, to his dad getting incarcerated for life. All of this took him to a dark place, acting out and getting arrested for weed. However, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as it forced Tyrann to turn his life around.
I've always been a good dude. I've always been a true leader. But I feel like at that moment, I had let everybody down, but mostly I let myself down. I had to listen to people say I wasn't worthy of being a good teammate.
Tyrann Mathieu.
I had to be a young leader. I'm glad I went through what I went through a year ago. So now I know what's the right way to go. I know how to lead now.
And become a champion.
After winning a Super Bowl in his first season in Kansas City, Mathieu's teammates voted him team MVP.
But even being an NFL legend won't stop the demons you had ever since you were a kid. Former Broncos receiver Vance Johnson called his childhood the depths of hell. He even had an abusive dad who beat his mom, traumatizing him and his sister.
And my sister and I were traumatized. We were in the back of the car just screaming and crying. And then I'd see it often.
And this abuse had a lasting impact on Vance, even into his adulthood, when at the height of his fame, he turned to drugs and alcohol to cope with the pain.
Johnson found fame while his inner demons found him.
I thought I had control over my life, and my identity was being famous, being somebody special that people loved and people cared about, not knowing that this thing was going to turn into hell one day.
His addiction spiraled all the way until he tried to delete himself 3 different times.
My life is chaos. I got all these relationships that are falling apart. What am I going to do? I sit in my closet, take a couple Xanax, a drink, and I try to kill myself. 3 different times I tried to kill myself when I was in the NFL because there was nothing there for me.
He even drunk himself into a coma. All these demons stemming from the dark past of his childhood.
But the turning point was when I knew that God had a plan for me.
And after all of this, Vance had no choice but to walk away from the game to get his mind right.
I called the Broncos and I said I might sign another 3-year contract. I don't know, I'll show up on my birthday. And I just didn't show up. And so I didn't retire. Basically just kind of walked away from the game and nobody knew where I was for years after that.
Today, Vance is doing better, and he is now traveling all over, helping others not fall into the same dark path that he went to.
He's a different person. He is very loving to everybody he meets. He didn't give up, and I think it was a lot of the reason that he's got this passion to help people today, and I think that's one of the reasons that he keeps going.